Hi, I'm Amy McGonigal, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Alice Paul. So, in 1912, Alice Paul met with Lucy Burns and like the core of the whole movement. They get together and they're like, dude, we should not be lobbying like for state by state approval of this. This women's suffrage issue was like, that's the way it's been going so far, but like this is super unsuccessful. Like if we keep waiting for all the states to make up their mind, like that's bullshit. It's going to take forever. So really what we should be focusing on is a federal amendment. Like let's just push for that. That's it. We're doing that. And NASA's like, okay, cool. Like you can do that if you want, but you got to like raise all your own money. We support you, but we don't really support you because we're not going to give you any support. So on March 3rd, there is this parade that has been long in the planning. Like Alice Paul's like, dude, we gotta fucking do something that's gonna like blow the top off of everybody's brain. 5,000 women to march. She gets this woman, her name is Inez Mulholland, and she's like gorgeous. She gets her to like sit atop of this like white horse. She's wearing white robes and they're marching down, and the banner that she's carrying actually says like, we demand an amendment to the United States Constitution enfranchising the women of this country. Like Alice Paul's smart as shit, right? She's like, I'm gonna plan this shit on the same day Woodrow Wilson is arriving by train to be inaugurated. He shows up at the train platform, like the train pulls up and he steps off the train and he's like, oh, there's no one here. Why is there no one here? And his advisors are like, well, there's some more important shit going on. Women. Okay, so Alice Paul like sends delegations to meet with Woodrow Wilson, like constantly, like just like bombard the door, like let's just bother him basically. And he's like, Woodrow Wilson is like, listen, like I hear you, but we really need to focus on taxes and tariffs and currency. Like I get what you're saying, but we're going to focus on this instead. And Alice Paul is like, okay, but do you not get that half of the population didn't vote on those tariffs and we didn't vote on that currency? Like you're making rules that don't apply to 50% of the population. Like, hello, women, focus on us. So, like, not a lot of progress was being made in a vote for this federal amendment. And so Alice Paul, once again, in her mentality of like everything just needs to be kept to the forefront. Like, let's keep it in the media. Let's keep it in the minds of everybody. She was like, let's do something to get everyone's attention. So they like lit these fires. They like like a fire pit, basically. And every time Woodrow Wilson made a speech, she would recite the speech and then burn that shit in her fire in front of her, and they would like ring a big bell. This women's suffrage issue was still alive and it was still going on, and we will not be unheard. They were just constantly protesting and picketing. You know, the rules changed. They were constantly getting arrested for things they'd never been getting arrested for before. In the early stages of being arrested, they were offered the option of like, okay, well, you can pay $25, which was a lot of money at the time, or you can go to jail for 10 days or 15 days or 60 days, whatever. And these women, they all stood up and they were like, well, if I pay you $25, that's an admission of guilt. I'm guilty of nothing. I've literally done nothing wrong except for stand up for what I believe in, and that's not illegal. Alice Paul had endured some hunger strikes in England, but it wasn't until she came back to the U.S. and like things had really escalated that she was sentenced for, let's say 60 days in prison, and then she would hunger strike, and it wasn't the same. Like, she wasn't released after 4 days. She was thrown down, and she was shackled to a chair, and tubes were forced down her throat day after day after day. 3 times a day she was fed. On January 10th, 1918, Woodrow Wilson, he finally expresses his support for the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. In 1919, the amendment was passed. Each state had to ratify it, and so as each state ratified the amendment, Alice Paul was back at headquarters, and they had this big ass flag, and she would sew on a star for each state. They'd be like, New Jersey, boom, star, sew it on, right? Like, New York, boom, star. Tennessee was the 36th state to ratify the amendment. Pretty much all depended on this guy named Harry Burns. I think everybody thought that he was going to vote no, but earlier in that day, he had received a letter from his mom. And his mom was like, yo, Harry, you better fucking vote this shit in, because I'm a woman and I'm your mom, and you better fucking do what I say. Vote yes for women's rights. So he did. And so it passed in Tennessee because of Harry Burns' mom. It was awesome. And Alice Paul runs out to the balcony of the house that they're staying at, and she takes this flag that she's been sewing the stars onto, and she shuffles it out, and it displays over the balcony, and there's all these stars that she's sewn on, and it's fucking awesome. It's such a it's such a great moment. We win. It's awesome. Totally visually representative of the victory.
Shout, shout, up with your song.